Welcome to the Catholic Cafe, where Catholic truth is served fresh daily. We've made you a reservation in the luxurious corner booth, so come on in and see what's on the menu today. Now, here's your host, Deacon Jeff Drzymski.
Greetings and welcome to the Catholic Cafe. I'm Deacon Jeff, sitting in the luxurious corner booth of the Catholic Cafe. And of course, joined as always here on our Gower, Missouri trip.
Yes.
Right, with Ziggy Rodriguez.
That's me.
Sam, it's good to have you here as a traveling partner and helping me to carry the luxurious corner booth because it's quite heavy, to bring it up to see the sisters, the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles. And we are joined again by Sister Scholastica. I hope you've heard some of the other shows that give us some background and context about Sister Wilhelmina, about these particular sisters and this order that Sister Wilhelmina founded. And now, as we promised, we're going to start giving you the skinny here. We're going to tell you really what happened, to sort of recount. And really, we have some, we'll just call you an eyewitness, Sister Scholastica.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were there, right?
I was there. I was there for the exhumation of Sister Wilhelmina.
So we should start with, why were you exhuming her body? I mean, when you have a beautiful church like this, and she's a foundress, it kind of there's a place for her, right?
Yeah. So we did originally bury her out at the corner of the property, which was designated to be the graveyard. In fact, it was consecrated as such by Cardinal Burke.
Right.
And that was about a year before Sister Wilhelmina was buried there at the cemetery. And the church had been completed, and for a while we were working on plans for a St. Joseph altar behind the main altar.
Okay.
And so as time went by, we thought, it would be a good thing to reinter Sister Wilhelmina's relics there, because St. Joseph is the patron of a happy death. And
yes,
every single one of the Benedictines of Mary were present at Sister Wilhelmina's passing, including the sisters who had gone to the daughter house.
And I don't think there's anybody who would say, why do you have the Foundress's relics here? Why would you do that? It makes sense.
And it's a tradition as well. I know there's other thoughts about that, because she's technically not a saint yet, but there is nevertheless a very long-standing tradition in the church, especially in monasteries, to have the Foundress in the mother house. And so we thought it would be appropriate. So we contacted the Catholic Customs Company for the construction of the altar. The original builder had said something came up and he wasn't able to carry it out. So we set them to work. We came up with the design for the St. Joseph altar. We moved ahead. And in the meantime, we contacted the director of the Catholic cemeteries for the Archdiocese of Newark.
Right.
And
there's protocol, and there are ways to do things.
Yes.
Right. We don't want to just kind of start getting our shovels out and let's go get sister.
That's
it's just
right.
There's stuff that has to happen.
That's right. So we made sure everything was all right, and he said, yes, if you're going to reinter the relics, then you do have to see what you have.
Right.
So we asked, what will we have? And he said, at this point, just bones.
Right. And so she had been laid to rest 4 years at that point.
Yes.
She was never embalmed.
Never embalmed.
A very simple burial.
Yes. She was buried 2 days after her death. So we stayed up with her through the night, keeping vigil.
That's a beautiful vigil.
Yes.
I've had brother deacons that pass, and it's like there's something about sitting there keeping vigil that's just beautiful.
And we continually prayed the Psalms of the Dead for her, taking turns. So she passed away on the vigil of the Ascension. Then we had the Mass of the Ascension, and then we continued the vigil into the next night, and then buried her on the Friday after Ascension. And traditionally, Saturday after the Ascension is the Feast of Mary, Queen of Apostles.
Okay,
so beautiful. It was beautiful in
timing.
That, yes.
Divine timing.
Yes, divine timing, and it brought all the sisters together, because when our sisters at our foundation in Ava, Missouri, came up, we were all present in the room, and you could almost tangibly feel our Lord present in the room taking Sister Wilhelmina. It was that beautiful.
And that's a beautiful moment, too. And then when you buried her, again, kind of one of the things about the sisters here is y'all do the work,
yes.
Right? So how did the burial take place? I mean, who dug the hole?
We all did.
Yeah.
We took turns. Not every single one of us, but we had a few crews of sisters, while others were taking turns with the vigils around her coffin, which again was a plain coffin. There was no kind of finish on it that would explain any kind of preservation. And
it's basically a wooden box.
Just a wooden box. That's right.
And
That's
there was-
wooden pine box.
Right,
A
and there
pine
was,
box.
which is obviously not going to last a terribly long time, but then also there's no like concrete vault or anything.
That's right. So we put her right in the ground. Now, some people say we were all surprised. I can't say we were all surprised because as we were keeping vigil around her body, we noticed more and more how beautiful she looked. And she was looking more beautiful the longer we kept vigil. And usually they say the opposite should be happening. You should start to be seeing signs of decomposition even within a day and a half.
Right.
And we were seeing the opposite. We were seeing her become more and more beautiful. Her smile.
You could, like if you were a skeptic, you could explain that away with like, well, you had such a devotion to her and she was,
No.
right? But I'm just saying that a
Yeah.
skeptic might say that, but
Yes.
you're sitting here telling me that like, no, there was something profound even then.
Yes, yes, and we could see even her smile was broadening before, and not just the regular sinking. I mean, it was her lips were moving up.
Wow.
And so that was kind of a tip off to us that maybe something might happen. You know, you hope for these things, but
Right.
sometimes it's, well, you know, you read about these things too, and you don't actually think it would happen to you. In fact, when the sisters were digging the grave, we got to the bottom and there was some water at the bottom, and one sister said to the other, "Oh, I feel so bad. We should try to fill in this water here. You know, it's really, we shouldn't. It's just hard to put someone you love
Right, into
in this."
a mud bath.
Right. And you know, just a very small puddle, but all the same, she just felt bad about that. And the other sister turned to her and said, "Well, then it'll just be a bigger miracle when she's incorrupt and we dig her up." But we weren't thinking that will be us. The same sisters who dug
Right.
the grave will be the same sisters to dig her up
That's a
and find her
beautiful,
incorrupt.
positive sentiment, though,
Yes,
and a very
yes.
faithful sentiment.
But I mean, it is a great point. I mean, if there's water present, that would, as a matter of common sense, in the normal course, it would add to the decomposition process.
Absolutely, yes. So it was wet clay. And so people say, well, if it's a high alkaline content in the soil, if it's a soapy soil, we didn't have any of those things. This is acidic soil, very much prone to make things decompose more quickly, not less quickly.
And actually, the pine box didn't make it, right? So, like, by the time you were digging, you were exhuming Sister Wilhelmina, water and dirt both had gotten into the pine box already.
That's right. So it wasn't like we were dealing with a box that was preserving her. It was cracked.
Right.
Now, when you did put her in, there was a thing around her jaw. We see this sometimes in like the movies and stuff. And we think, do we still do that? And yours was a very traditional, simple, really kind of an ancient practice.
Yes.
And so describe that linen that was used and.
Well, we cut a new piece of linen and we tied it around her jaw, and it's to keep the mouth closed because
the
it
muscles,
will naturally fall back open. So I was there when we were putting the linen band around her, and then we put her habit back on her. So it wasn't like it was a new habit. It was the habit she had been wearing for several years.
Yes.
Right. And so we put her veil, we call this a velour. It's like a wimple, the scapular, the habit, and also what we call a cucula, which is a very large full garment. It's a little like a chasuble, but it's not quite. We just wear it for the major hours of the divine office, and so we cut that to fit around her, the cucula. And so we put a crown of flowers on her head. We put her profession candle in her hand, and we put her in the coffin, which we had lined with satin. It's important. So when the actual time came to exhume her, it took...
4 years have passed now at this point. So
years.
You buried her,
yes.
4 years, and it's 4 years of like, okay, Sister Wilhelmina's gone, we're doing this, and we're starting to build, and you're probably feeling the graces already. You're already, your order is getting, it's starting to take off, and people are, and it's a beautiful, everything's good, right?
Yes.
But it's 4 years.
Yes. So 4 years, and again, that priest said, expect bones. Another doctor who came said, not even bones, sometimes it's just dust at this point.
Yeah.
If the circumstances are the way they've been described. So it took us longer to dig the hole the second time because we had to be that much more careful.
Well, and what would you say? So you've got the scientific expectations have been set of bones at best, if not dust. Would you say what was the sort of the spirit of the sisters at the time? Where some of them, were they nervous and worried about what they were going to see? Or was there a hopefulness? What would you say sort of the
I think we had a hopefulness, and I was thinking, even if it is just bones, I think we need to have her back in the church.
Oh.
But again, I think there was that idea of hopefulness in terms of anticipation, but we almost didn't dare hope that much because, again, there's only 200 documented cases of incorruptibles in the church. So it's a very rare miracle.
Yes.
Now, when we actually got to the coffin, they called Mother Abbess out. She took a look, and we were surprised that the coffin had held its shape and hadn't collapsed because
Right.
it was a very tight-fitting coffin. So we got to the coffin, we got some ropes under it, and at that point, all of the sisters wanted to be there. So
Right.
Mother Abbess made them all turn around while we were just sizing up the situation, because initially the top was covered with dirt, but as we were clearing away the dirt, we realized there was a very large crack all the way down the top of the coffin lid. And it was probably about 4 inches at widest, so quite a lot of dirt had gotten in.
Yeah.
So to argue that she wasn't exposed to the elements, that's not really valid, because you've got 4 inches of water,
Right.
dirt,
Right
air
on top,
getting in there,
right.
right where her body was. So we hoisted it up, we cleared away the dirt, and as the dirt's clearing away, we're thinking, I'm not quite sure what to do here, because so much had fallen in, we could tell.
Right.
And so Mother Abbess had all the sisters turned around, and she was handed a flashlight, and I said to her, Mother Abbess, why
Was
don't
this
you...
at night or?
No, actually, it was late afternoon, and
But she wanted to get a look into the
coffin because
Okay.
it was very dark inside the coffin. So she's shown the flashlight, and I said, maybe look at her feet. And so she shone the flashlight down the crack toward the feet, and I'll never forget it. She had her head down, and then all of a sudden she popped her head back up with her eyes as big as saucers, and she said, I didn't just see that. And she looked again, and she screamed. And I've never heard her scream like that. I don't think I ever will hear it again. But then she cried out, I see her foot. And she handed me the flashlight next, and I looked, and sure enough, there was her foot as full as the day we had buried her. You could still see the Haynes brand on the sock.
Wow.
It was it was so perfectly intact. And this was after it had been exposed, but you could still see that foot. So it was interesting, because that was one of the first things after we actually unscrewed the lid. Sisters just kept going up and kind of squishing her toe, because it felt like a living foot. It was completely full.
Wow,
and
that is
beautiful.
incredible.
Yes,
That's
so-
incredible. Now, we don't get any sponsorship money from Haynes, just so we're clear here.
and there's no, and by the way, also there's no odor at all at this point.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. So that was another thing. So we unscrewed the lid. We had our chaplain come over, and at first Mother Abbess thought that maybe she was partially incorrupt, because the dirt had fallen in such a way that we thought perhaps it was bones. But then as we looked closer, we know, oh, no, the dirt just fell in such a way that it looked almost like bones. Once we cleared away that dirt, we said, she's there. She's all there. And unfortunately, the largest part of the crack was over her face. So it had actually pressed in on the face. It pushed one of the eyes further back into the socket.
Right.
And so we took out Ann Ball's incorruptibles, because we don't know what we're doing. It's not like you can dial some hotline for the Vatican and say, what do you do?
Incorruptibles.com.
Exactly. It's not like there's any instructions for this kind of thing. So as we were reading through and doing some other research as well, it is quite common to have wax put on the face. And I think for this very reason, Padre Pio is one of the best examples, where they exhumed him and they said, yes, there was signiballs damage to
I think
the
Claire of
face.
Assisi's also got
Yes.
a wax mask. on.
Yes. And in fact, it's very rare for them not to. But her eyeballs are still present. You can still see them. Her nose, her mouth, her lips, everything. You could even see hair. You could see her hair actually grew. The hair on her scalp grew about half an inch, and it turned a beautiful golden color. I don't know. That's something I don't know about, and
Wow,
have,
but you're just describing what you all saw. Now, at this
Exactly.
point, have you brought her in somewhere?
Yes. So
you're further examining and taking, because I
Yes.
imagine this is a kind of a timely process.
Yes,
or
indeed it is. And
consuming.
I think this is something we're under the illusion that it might just be like Sleeping Beauty. You just bring her up and there she is. And that wasn't the case at all. So we processed back, we were singing. Our chaplain said it was the most beautiful singing he had ever heard in his life as we were walking back to the house here. And we brought her to this porch that right outside where we're speaking here. And they set the coffin on the ground. And that was the first time that we realized that all the coffin lining was gone.
So the satin that
The
was
satin
lining
was
it
gone.
was
The
gone.
poster board was gone. There were bits of tape left because it was plastic, but that was completely disintegrated, gone. And there were roots growing in. There was all kinds of dirt and mold, but she was there, completely intact. And not only was she completely intact, her habit was completely intact.
And that's amazing. Now, what about this linen band that was wrapped around her chin?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't finish describing that. So that linen band that we tied around her to keep her mouth shut was one of the only things that was starting to disintegrate that was actually touching her. So that Sister Misericordia, when she was handling it, said it's the way everything else should have been. It was like rotting newspaper.
Right. So if you touch it, you're not going to be able to handle it long. It's going to kind of crumble in your fingers.
That's right. So she was pulling it off in pieces off of Sister Wilhelmina's face, and the skin was still completely intact underneath. And so the new linen band had rotted and was right next to her used cotton velour, which
and this is one that
natural
was
fiber.
well worn. It wasn't
Yes.
like it was a new one they put her in.
No. This was well worn, natural fibers, and it was completely intact. Her habit was made of wool, also completely intact. Her veil, made of synthetic material, was also completely intact. So you've got 3 different kinds of material, all withstanding the test of time, remaining completely intact. We pulled up the corner of the cupola that I mentioned that we cut. You could still see the threads hanging down like it had been just cut that day.
Wow.
Everything that was touching her was completely intact. Even the pillow that was under her head was intact.
What about the flowers?
The flowers had been dried in place on her head, the crown of flowers. The flowers around her candle were also dried in place, and the gossamer thin ribbon that was around her profession candle was also completely intact.
So now as you're seeing all this,
Yes.
right, and this you probably had a little time, maybe a couple of days to process as you're sort of finding out more and more. And I know that there's still got to be an excitement and
Yes.
and you're thinking like, wow, what maybe even a little dreamy, like what this could mean, et cetera, et
Yes.
cetera. But really, there also is this reality of like, what are we supposed to do?
Yes.
And then you're obviously realizing that like, well, I don't know that we're going to have the same little marble placement of relics in
Yes.
this St. Joseph altar. We're thinking glass case now, right? We're thinking
Right.
we got to go back to the drawing board on this.
That's right. So I was able to reach out to the Catholic Customs Company and explain the situation. I said, well, we just dug her up, and she's incorrupt. And
I'm sure there was a little weird pause
Yes.
at the other side of that.
Yes. So they were the first ones to know, really. Mark Gabriel and Andrew Kolf were the names of the woodworkers. And being Catholics, they understood right away, okay, this means a change. This means we're going to have to put a glass frontal on. But already, because they were Catholic, they connected right away. They said, okay, we know what to do. And they said, it's so good that we're doing this, because if you had been working with another company, they would have been wondering what in the world you're talking about. But
Yeah.
we know incorruptible, that means a completely different situation, especially for the St. Joseph altar shrine. And so they set to work right away at making it into more of a display. I know it sounds so bad, display case, but you have to treat incorruptibles very differently from just bones.
Absolutely, and I guess it's really too early in the game, even though you're starting to think like that about like what's going to happen, right? Because I mean, word got out pretty quick.
Yes.
How did the word get out?
Yes, that was actually, it was through a leaked email. So
Okay.
a personal email was sent. Sister's family had come right around the time that she was being exhumed, and they told other people, and they asked for verification. And so word began to get out that way, but once that email went out,
And you're
it
not
went
going
out
to keep
the
something like that
parish.
secret, to be honest
Right,
with you. It's going to get out
exactly.
pretty quick with so
Exactly.
few incorruptibles. And so, this gets
bushel
out.
baskets are only so big. You
That's
can't-
right.
Well, and so you're used to having, for the time you've been here, a few extra people that kind of come for your daily masses. But that first weekend was probably a sight to see.
Well, it gained momentum. So it was really by Memorial Day that we really saw the peak, because it was picking up more and more media coverage. And something that really astonished us was how much interest even the secular media paid and gave to this, because it's a little bit strange, this concept that we
That's
have
right.
of incorruptibility. But I was really surprised too at how respectful they were in treating it. Now, of course, they always bring in the skeptics saying, well, under these, as they say,
That's right.
Goldilocks conditions, this is possible. But for the most part, that was very minimal compared to the outreach we were having, the outpouring of support and belief.
I mean, ultimately, you started to get to the point where there were like 50,000 people that came over a weekend.
Right. That's
and
right.
that is huge. I mean, we've been here and we love this place in our short time here, and it's not huge. Like 50,000, that's a lot of people.
It was. So originally we had her in the parlor. That was too small a space. We put her in the church, still too small a space. So we finally moved her into the church basement, where we had a constant stream of people. They were going all the way out and down the driveway, trying to get in to see her. And there's different ways to do it, but we thought, it more or less happened organically, that we cleaned her and then we had her out, and then people began to come to visit her. And they said no, they wanted to see her before she was in the shrine. And I think that was the rush of people. They wanted to see for themselves this beautiful gift that God had given us in Sister Wilhelmina's incorruptibility, because it's not so much a living proof, of course, because she's gone to be with the Lord, but a sign to those of us who are living.
It's a
on the
tangible
earth.
sign.
Right.
Right. Literally, you can touch that sign.
Right. And so many people had that idea. I need to see this for myself. I need to have my own belief confirmed in this, that this life is not it. And that's what incorruptibility shows, that there's this resistance to the effects of the fall, especially death. That's the worst curse. This is the greatest disorder, is death.
Yeah.
And Christ came to give us life. And so Sister Wilhelmina's defiance of death and its effects is a sign pointing to Christ, her bridegroom. And that's really the beauty of the habit as well. So we had a crew of doctors and a coroner, the county coroner, and the sheriff. They all came to examine her. They tried to do an ultrasound to see if her
Organs
heart,
and whatnot.
Yes, and unfortunately there's just enough of a pocket between her skin and the rest of her that they weren't able to pick up what was underneath. But nevertheless, everything was very much intact, and it was interesting too, because the coroner, who I do not believe is Catholic, came. And Mother Abbess said, I'm sorry, it smells a little bit, because it smelled a little bit of the mold. After we had cleaned her, you could still smell a little bit of the mold. And the coroner just looked at her and said, "This does not smell."
Yeah.
That's right, because he knows that smell, right?
That's right.
He's been in the biz.
That's right. And she said, absolutely. All the doctors were saying this is remarkable, but again, the habit. There's no way this is possible. Absolutely no way that you can have natural materials under the ground for 4 years with no damage whatsoever.
And I visited, so I was there, the weekend of Pentecost. It was that Saturday was the day that I was there.
Because we have somebody sitting at the table other than you
Yeah.
that made a pilgrimage, that showed
I did.
up.
Yeah, just as a last minute thing. I felt prompted to call a friend, and I thought, maybe he's just crazy enough at the last minute to just drive.
How about
tonight.
a road trip?
Yeah, exactly.
I heard there's this sister.
Yes, and then it just so happened another mutual friend of ours who's from California was also making a trip there, and so we all ended up by Holy Spirit, coming together that same day, which was crazy. And yeah, it wasn't until I got back home and someone asked me, was there a smell? It didn't even cross my mind that there could be one,
Right.
because you're just there, and there she is, and she's incorrupt. I'll tell you, the first thing that I experienced, there were because you had people from the way it was set up in that room, you had two lines. People would come either to her left side or to her right side, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a young man. He was, I think, in his early 20s. Looked athletic, like a jock, kind of like a basketball player. I think he even had gym clothes on, if I'm not mistaken, or something similar to that. The moment it was his time to walk up, this young man fell to his knees and just started bawling. He just started crying, and I just was like, "This, wow." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, this is touching
probably,
people.
Probably
Yes.
one of many, sister. So many people came, people who weren't Catholic, people who were from
Yes.
different, Christian religions, who were like moved to come
Yes.
and experience.
Yes, a great many non-Catholics, which was something I think that surprised us all, because we thought non-Catholics would be looking at it saying, this is just weird. But no, that wasn't what happened. at
So
all.
still, this is still happening, right? So it's not too late to come and visit Sister Wilhelmina. In fact, I think she's going to be there for a while.
Yes.
Right. So we invite people to come to the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles, to the Abbey here in Gower, Missouri, and it's just a beautiful sight to see. It's very peaceful. It's very powerful. And then to hear the beautiful music, the beautiful liturgies to experience, and just to be part of all this stuff is, it's a marvel in our time,
Yes.
right? It's something that God has given us as a sign to help us to know that, like, hey, I got this thing,
Yes.
right? And we need to know that. And then we live in a world that's so desperate for a sign. We're waiting for aliens. We're looking for scientific things and miracles, and we see all these different things. And yet here's a sign that's so simple and
Yes.
so beautiful, and it points directly to Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
And that's so wonderful. So what a marvelous story. What a wonderful opportunity. So, Sister, thanks again for sharing all these sort of eyewitness accounts and the details here.
Yes.
It's been so powerful and so beautiful, and I thank you for doing that.
Oh, no, thank you. And I thank God for allowing that to happen to us.
Amen. Well, let's ask the Blessed Mother to continue to watch over us and lead us on this journey. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy
Mary,
Mary,
Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Catholic Cafe. If you'd like to contact Deacon Jeff, send him an email at deaconjeff@thecatholiccafe.com. Visit us on the web at thecatholiccafe.com. You can also find us on iTunes or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Catholic Cafe is brought to you by the Order of Malta Federal Association. Join us again at the Catholic Cafe, serving up salvation one cup of coffee at a time.